Hello, I hope you all are having a lovely Sunday. I just wanted to give you all a little few things to think about today, based a little bit off our Sunday readings. So, the first thing I recommend is that you all watch the movie Dante's Peak. It's about a volcano, and it's based in a fictional town somewhere in probably Oregon or Washington State. And it's about a volcano that is starting to stir, and scientists get called in, and they have this big argument over whether the volcano is going to erupt or not. And they're worried if they put the town on alert, and then nothing happens, then it'll cause the economy to crash, and this town will be destroyed economic-wise. But then, of course, the volcano does wake up, and people are not evacuated quickly enough. But I won't tell you what else happens because it's a really good movie. So I encourage you to watch the movie. So compare that to another story that happened in 79 AD in the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum. Y'all have probably heard of Mount Vesuvius. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that Mount Vesuvius gave very stern and obvious signs that it was waking up. There was several very large earthquakes. It started having steam and ash explosions, and people ignored it. Most of the people stayed. And then literally all hell broke loose when there was the massive explosive eruption, and the ash and the pumice started raining down, and a lot of people still stayed, did not leave. And then, of course, we know the story that Pompeii and Herculaneum were both buried and destroyed, and most of the people were killed. Now, we have some explosive things happening in our society right now. I'm sure a lot of you all have seen the State of the Union address from last week from President Trump. And myself and my pastor, Father Brian, watched that State of the Union address, and I had Father Brian telling me a commentary on different people's faces, Democrat and Republican, so that was quite entertaining. But the shocking thing to me was, making mention of some of the things that our country is dealing with, such as near birth and even, soon after birth, abortions. This is horrible. How are we allowing these things to happen? And then some of the other things going on, like, some of these issues with politicians more or less screening possible people to be elected based on whether they're a Knight of Columbus or not, because they look at being a Knight of Columbus as a radical sect. And all the Knights do is hold up Catholic teaching. So what is that saying about our Catholic faith? Are we going to stand and deal with this? And then you have some of these other issues like being transgender. That's something I have a hard time getting my head around. People saying, well, I feel like I was born a different gender. Well, you can have the hormones, you can have your body parts modified, but it doesn't change your DNA. And you still have to take those hormones the rest of your life, because if you don't, your body will eventually resort to how it was created originally, whatever. And that would be just like me saying, well, as a blind person, me getting up one day and saying, well, I feel like I can see. So which one of y'all is going to give me your car keys so I can go drive around? Yeah, that ain't going to happen. But we're denying the physical reality of things. And, based on how we feel. Now, what I see happening, if we can let this kind of stuff go, I think what is coming is there's going to be people who say, well, I feel like the church is giving, all it does is give hate speech. And then there's going to be people that say, well, I feel like the church is it's not positive, it's not this, it's not that. And then we're going to be labeled as haters. And we're going to be dealing with, after all these tremors that we're going through now, we're going to be dealing with the explosive persecutions. That's what's on our horizon. If we don't pay attention to these tremors, that's what's on our radar, whether we want to admit it or not. This is coming, and we need to stand up and deal with it, address it, acknowledge it, name it. And something else we need to remember is that God's grace is enough. We heard in the second reading from Mass today that, God's grace will see us through. That's what Paul tells us. In our first reading, Isaiah tells us, in that reading, God will take care of Isaiah. He will be able to preach. God's grace is enough. In the gospel today, Jesus asked Simon Peter to throw the net into the lake to bring up a catch after they hadn't had anything all night. Peter did it. And what happened? God's grace provided. And they brought up so many fish that the nets were tearing. That's a huge deal. That much fish would have been enough to be several months' wages. God's grace provides. So even when things are difficult and things feel bad, we need to stand up for what's right, because God's grace will provide. He will do it. And even in a volcanic eruption, when the ash settles, when the lava stops flowing, when it's all said and done, the ground is more fertile afterward. And people can come back and start over. And that's how the church has been. There's been times where the church has almost been wiped out. And through the blood of many saints, those saints rise up and the church revives and becomes even stronger. So may we make it through the difficult times. May we acknowledge them. Stand up for what's right, for what is true. And then when the dust and ash settles, continue positively forward. Amen.